I created 2 ICAC investigative positions, which are internet crimes against children.
Okay.
They're at the tip of the spear for our efforts in this area. Recently, I got approval from the Commissioner's Court. I entered into a contract with the Texas Attorney General's office. We're part of their ICAC task force. Mm-hmm. That enabled me to send my investigators to Georgetown, where they received a week-long training on how they conduct those investigations. They told me they got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
In addition to that, my captain and lieutenant, captain I have over Criminal Investigations Division, and the lieutenant I have over the Special Investigations Bureau, they come from that background in DPS and have a lot of investigative experience in that area, targeting child predators, human trafficking rings, so that we were able to, because of that experience, we were able to really hit the ground running right after I took office. And
hello and welcome to another episode of Discover Seguin. I'm your host, David Pope, and we're here again for a follow-up conversation with Sheriff Joshua Ray of Guadalupe County. Sheriff, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So it has now been just a hair over 5 months since you've taken office. And I know from interviews that you had given in the past, most specific, probably the most famous interview was the one you did here, I think for sure. Yeah. That you had a lot of plans. You had a lot of 90-day plans, a lot of 6-month and 12-month plans. And I'd love for you to just kind of let us know, well, where are you at on that?
Oh, wow. How much time do we got?
All the time you need.
We've made a lot of progress in the first 5 months and are still making it as we move forward. Matter of fact, I went to breakfast with a group of guys today, and a judge was there with us, and he said he had talked to some of my guys and said, how's it going? They said the only problem they're having is trying to keep up because we're moving so fast.
That's a good problem to have.
I've never been one to sit on problems or inefficient mechanisms or ways. I heard the other day, I heard Elon Musk, one of his principles of innovation is to question the assumptions. And I looked at my wife and I said, that's me. I question the assumptions and then I challenge whether or not we're doing it right. So some of the things that I wanted to tackle early on, we've made quite a bit of progress on. We've already began a complete policy review of everything that we do within the office, from law enforcement to detention to animal control. That's going to be an ongoing process for probably several months. Most chiefs and sheriffs I've talked to that have come into office, it usually takes them about a year to a year and a half to get all that in place. Yeah. As you can imagine, there's a lot of policy in the law enforcement world on how we do a lot of things. I wanted to update and modernize our technology and our equipment. Computers have been an everyday facet of law enforcement and police work for several decades, but for whatever reason, we didn't have that here, the in-car computer system. Okay. Now it's been in the works for a couple years, but it was just dragging along and wasn't happening. So probably within about a month to 2 months after I took office, I got with the vendor and said, hey, look, you got till June 1st. You need to get it done. And we're about to go live. They didn't make the June 1st
didn't
deadline,
quite make that,
but they had made so much progress at that point that we're within weeks of going online. Our dispatchers are actually participating in the training this week to learn how to operate the new CAD, which is computerized aided dispatch system. Okay. That's going to make it to where our deputies they've got the computers in the car and the information is at their fingertips. So rather than an old-fashioned, they call it in on the radio, you hear everything, you're trying to take notes or you pull over, it's all right there on the computer screen. So they know exactly what they're responding to, where it's at. They can run a lot of the checks, warrant checks, criminal history checks, previous calls to this location. All that stuff is accessible to them right there in the car. So,
oh gosh, that's hugely important. I mean,
oh yeah.
We think in our business, I want to be prepared when I go to a meeting, with a potential client or business partner or something. And And I can't even imagine having to do those completely impromptu with no knowledge of what's going on in the past, and even more so when your life is on the line potentially, or the lives of the people that are there. That's crazy that we're just now getting to that. I'm so glad that's happening.
Yeah, and we, in everything that we do in our society and culture now, we live in a very data, information driven culture and society, and from everything you do, law enforcement's no different. I mean, the tools that I was using, 10, 15 years ago as a state trooper in Seguin, and to detect smugglers and criminal activity, they've got even more information available now to assist them in their job, and it makes them highly effective. So it's a great tool. Just this last week, we began a transition. I used state seized forfeiture funds to buy optic sights for their handguns.
Okay.
So previously they just had your typical handgun sights, right? The optic sights increase the percentage of the effectiveness tenfold. Your 70% accuracy shooter was now 90%. It makes it much more efficient. Even me, I'm a pretty good shot. Being a Marine and then being in law enforcement for as long as I was, it took my group from here to here. So it's highly effective, and we began that transition. So that's a new tool that they have accessible. I think it's going to make our shooting incidents much more precise and effective. I mean, you never want to have to use your firearm, but it's the nature of the job. It's going to happen at some point in time. And as law enforcement, as a former Texas Ranger that investigated those incidents, we own every single shot that comes out of that firearm, right? So we have to be accountable for it. So as an administrator and a leader, it's important to me that, and it's important to the public, that we be as accurate as we possibly can. So that's another tool that is more modern technology that I'm glad we have available. We're also in our FY26 budget. I requested several items for more non-lethal tools.
That was where I was going next.
Yes. We've asked for several. We've asked for funding for several new non-lethal shotguns that shoot a projectile that's not piercing, so therefore it's non-lethal.
It's like beanbag or rubber bullet.
Exactly. Like that, yes. And there's different variations of that. We also recently I moved some funding around, current funding that we have, and got Commissioner's Court approval, and I'm very thankful for that. We authorized the purchase of tasers. They did not have tasers before. Those are on order now. They should be getting here within a couple of weeks, and we will begin the transition process of outfitting with those. So
every officer on patrol will have
yes, sir.
Will have a taser.
In addition, it won't just be patrol. I've got some investigators and my tactical guys that serve different types of operations that they need one as well. So, but yes, every patrol officer will have one.
Okay. So let's see. There were a couple of other things that that I know you were interested in, and one of those on the technology side. You were talking about the computer aided dispatching, but there was also some data collection and reporting that maybe wasn't quite compliant with, I believe it was NIBRS.
Yes, that is correct.
And so now you guys where are you at on that process and implementing those systems?
That is the same system that's going to be going on online within a couple of weeks. So that system, the CAD, computerized data dispatch, is also an RMS, which is a report management system.
Okay.
And then a JMS, which is a jail management system. Guadalupe County has purchased all three of those from this particular vendor. The CAD's going to go online with the RMS at the same time. So the new report management system is going to track the data to do a lot of things. Yes, we'll be NIBRS compliant, which we haven't been. That's a huge hurdle that we should have gotten over already, because the statute already has said for some time that we need to be in compliance with that. Yeah. But we're not able to apply for federal grants for funding in other areas because we're not NIBRS compliant. As soon as we go online, we should be NIBRS compliant.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're weeks away from that as well. In addition to that, it also gives me real-time data to analyze crime trends and hotspot locations throughout the county. So if I need to shift patrol districts or our investigative proactive investigative efforts to target certain areas that are, say, high in burglaries or traffic problems, whatever the case can be, we'll be able to use that data to do that.
Okay. Well, and we certainly appreciate, I mean, from a county standpoint and from an insurance standpoint, having that data, because it does make a difference, in so much of insurance these days is based on, crime scores in those areas and things like that. And having that quality data is very meaningful in that, not only from the standpoint of, obviously I guess more importantly from a protection and interdiction standpoint, but obviously also from the standpoint of, well, how do we price risk in those areas?
Yeah,
so,
makes sense.
Well, so, I mean, sounds like you guys are making a great deal of progress. And I know one of the things that also that you had mentioned, and this comes with the growth and the funding needs that it sounds like maybe will be addressed a little bit by this NIBRS compliance. The need for a new jail. I know you were at the time when in December, I guess, when you first did this interview, you were at probably 80 to 90% capacity, and needing to really get to a place, to a larger place. So where is it that you guys are at now? Have you had communication with the county as to, what the process is going to look like for a new jail? Or remodel? I mean, where are y'all at in that?
Oh, absolutely. That's been a topic of discussion many times in the last several weeks, because we've gotten up to, we're not there at the moment. We've thankfully come down a little bit, but we've gotten up to 92% capacity.
Oh, wow.
At 95% capacity, it triggers an alarm with the Texas jail standards, where they start directing us to looking at other jails to send out our inmates. And when we do that, I think it's inevitable at this point. It's going to happen. It could happen before the summer's over with, because our jail population tends to spike during the summertime.
Okay.
So if that happens, it's going to cost the county eventually millions of dollars, because we're looking at paying anywhere from $110 to $130 a day per inmate. There's not much space in Texas right now.
Yeah.
Jail infrastructure in Texas, just frankly, has not kept up with the growth in Texas.
So it's easier to move here than it is to build multi-million-dollar facilities.
and they're not cheap. I mean, because the number's big. I mean, we're looking at a potential $150 million build to build the jail facilities that we're going to need. So, and there's no getting around that conversation. I mean, it's going to be expensive when we get around to it. But we have had several discussions revolving around it between me and the commissioners and the judge. It's at the front of the conversations. I think we will be moving forward probably, and we're in FY26 budget discussions right now. I think we're headed in a direction where we eventually will start speaking with architects and having the conversation of what a renovation project looks like versus what a new build looks like. Mm-hmm. In Josh Ray's opinion, a lot of it's Band-Aids except the new build. I think the new build will set us up for the future. If we can get a facility with roughly about 1,200 beds in it, like right now, that the jail we have right now is built for 597 beds. Truthfully, it's only about a 550 capacity. We're renovating one hallway right now, and we're setting it up so that we can transition it to juvenile detention when we do transition into a new jail. So we are planning long term. So if you don't know, juvenile detention butts up to the adult detention facility, right?
Okay.
There's a wall and a locked door between it, but we're hoping that when we renovate this hallway, it's going to add bed space for juvenile, who's in much need of bed space as well. Yeah. And from what they're telling me, when we give them that hallway, we're going to set them up for the next 20 years. Okay. But we can only do that when we either expand or build a new jail.
Gotcha.
So those discussions are ongoing. Matter of fact, we had a meeting last week that involved Commissioner Drew Engelke, Precinct 2. He's spearheading a lot of that for the Commissioner's Court, and then with juvenile detention and my jail staff. So it is moving. I mean, it's moving at the pace of government.
Sure.
but it is moving, and everybody involved knows that it's a pressing need, and it's going to cost us a lot of money if we don't move forward quickly.
Okay. Well, so, on a couple of other notes, there have been some really exciting things. I guess exciting if you enjoy watching kind of real crime happening around here. I think probably the thing that comes foremost to mind is some of the human trafficking. I'm trying to think how the best way to phrase this. Just the child prostitution that was going on and those stings that occurred. Tell us a little bit about that. I don't know what you can tell us or what you can't, but I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on it and your thoughts about, as a community, where we stand on that, and not where we stand, but really kind of the state of human trafficking in Guadalupe County, and what we can do to continue to kind of to tamp that down and eradicate it.
Yeah. So I guarantee you your sheriff is trying to eradicate it. Yeah. And I don't want everyone to get over alarmed because they're being made aware of the arrest now. The problem has always been here, and it's not just specific to Guadalupe County.
Sure.
It's all over the place. It's just there's more awareness about it now because two things. We're being aggressive in our approach and making the arrest, and we're being transparent about it. And so the public sees what we're doing.
Right.
That was a campaign promise of mine that I was going to pursue child predators. That stems from my investigative experience in the Texas Rangers. I investigated a lot of crime, everything from bank robberies to murders to kidnappings to child crimes. And the ones that stuck with me were the child crimes. Because, a murder is usually final. I mean, it hurts. It has an impact, but it's final. Or a drug addict chooses to do the things that they do, but a child is in the wrong place at the wrong time or was born in the wrong family. And these crimes that are perpetrated on them, they carry it for the rest of their life. Even if they recover from it, it's still there. And that's just something that should not be happening. And we should, as a society, put every resource we have into stopping that. And I vowed that if I became sheriff, I was going to do so. And so here's how we've done it. I moved some positions around. I created 2 ICAC investigative positions, which are internet crimes against children.
Okay.
They're at the tip of the spear for our efforts in this area. Recently, I got approval from the Commissioner's Court. I entered into a contract with the Texas Attorney General's office. We're part of their ICAC task force. Mm-hmm. That enabled me to send my investigators to Georgetown, where they received a week-long training on how they conduct those investigations. They told me they got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
In addition to that, my captain and lieutenant, captain I have over Criminal Investigations Division, and the lieutenant I have over the Special Investigations Bureau, they come from that background in DPS and have a lot of investigative experience in that area, targeting child predators, human trafficking rings, so that we were able to, because of that experience, we were able to really hit the ground running right after I took office. And the first evidence of that was in an operation that we conducted here locally, where we set up at a local hotel. And fortunately, the hotel owner worked with us in doing so, and we're very, very appreciative of that. And we set up a major operation. DPS brought in a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. We had outside agencies. There was like 7 or 8 different agencies involved. Cameras were set up. We investigators that were chatting online with the perpetrators of these crimes. And long story short, some of them would come, some of them wouldn't, some of them would back out, for whatever reason. Eventually, we ran that task force for 3 days. The first day we had some technical difficulties, so it took a while for us to get up and running. The second day, we were pretty much sacking up criminals left and right.
Yeah.
The third day, we started noticing chatter on some of the back channels and pages on the internet where they were saying, don't go to Seguin. Because it had gotten around that there was something going on and people were being arrested. But that's what we want. We want that to happen.
I mean, deterrence is still the best crime prevention we can do, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if we can, And you talk about that in terms of transparency, right? I mean, if we make this all quiet and we don't ever see it, I mean, criminals, well, they're just like everybody else. They're not going to, they think everything's all well and good. So we might as well just keep committing crimes.
We have a lot of good things in Guadalupe County in this regard that some of the counties that surround us can't say. We have effective law enforcement that's going to pursue criminals. They are going to be prosecuted, and we live in a good conservative county that supports law enforcement. And that's big nowadays in my profession because there are jurisdictions out there where law enforcement is not supported. Yeah. But we have all three here, and I can tell you since the beginning of the year, we have had people standing in line applying for the sheriff's office. I've got a long list of applicants right now, and our quality has gone up quite a bit as well. So the word has gotten out that this is the place to be if you want to be an effective law enforcement officer.
So one of the things, that I guess, I see in my neighborhood, and I happen to live in New Braunfels, but I mean, in my neighborhood, somebody was asking me the other day, how many police cars, do you see in your neighborhood? I'm like, I think there's a ton of police in our neighborhood. I mean, we have a constable that lives in our neighborhood. We've got a game warden. I've got a couple of Guadalupe County sheriffs. And I think it's great that they're, for so long, my sister was a police officer in Longview, and, they weren't ever allowed to take patrol cars home. And I thought, isn't that the best prevention you can do is have a squad car sitting in a neighborhood? I think that's awesome. Yeah. Nobody wants to go in that neighborhood, right?
Yeah. It's actually scientifically proven that police presence suppresses crime. It's one of the only concepts that's actually universally scientifically proven. Now, you'll hear some academics argue that it doesn't get rid of the crime, it disperses it. Either or, if it disperses it out of Guadalupe County, I'm okay with that.
Right. I mean, you can't stop it everywhere, right? I mean, you're responsible for your scope of responsibility, and that's it.
Yeah.
When it comes to, obviously in this operation that y'all are doing, there were no actual victims involved, other than perhaps, I'm sure you caught people who had, were involved in lots of child pornography and other things, if they were doing the things they were thinking they were coming to do. What about victim services in that? Because there's been a lot of concern in Texas, with victim services in relation to, they're engaged, ostensibly in an illegal act, even though they're a juvenile, a minor. So there's always a little bit of potential for them to get wrapped up in the justice system themselves. And then there's been, we've worked with some ministries that have tried to work with victims and help victims. And then on some level, there hasn't been great state support on that. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about kind of your experience on how we're working with victims of particularly of child sex trafficking, right? How we're helping to protect them and to help them recover and maybe move back into a normal life after, such a horrible experience here.
Yeah. I've actually written some papers on this in grad school, that the victim is often re-victimized by the criminal justice system. And the help that they get sometimes in the criminal justice system is short term. It's not long lived. They get just enough amount of help to get us through the trial or whatever the disposition of the case is, and then it's done. It's, hey, go figure it out. Go find your way. Yeah. And it's no shock that several of them fall back into the same problems that they already had. So that's where victims advocacy groups are vital to our success, because law enforcement, we're concentrated on enforcement and investigations of these crimes. Prosecutors are concentrated on prosecuting the criminal. The defense is concentrated on defending their client. Right. The courts are concentrated on the judicial process. We need these victim advocacy groups to concentrate on the victim, because the victim is 99% of the time the key witness in your crime. So in order to prosecute them, in order to make the case stick, you have to have a vital witness to this crime. So what the victim advocacy groups do is they rebuild that person. They give them the resources they need. They help them get back on their feet, and they make them a good witness for us just by taking care of them and loving them and giving them the resources they need. So they are an integral part of the entire thing. We actually had victim advocacy groups that were embedded with us during that operation.
Oh, okay.
And we will continue to do that. And we did recover 2 victims. They were also perpetrators per se. They were prostitutes, but that's what human trafficking looks like.
Right.
And I think that's what got lost in decades past is they would get tied up in the criminal justice system, and we just go, hey, that's a prostitute.
Right.
Well, sometimes they're a prostitute not because they want to be a prostitute, because they've been made to be a prostitute. Right. We had one victim that we recovered in that operation that was a young lady from Michigan, and somehow she had got trafficked down to San Antonio and was being used as a prostitute. And once we walked her through what was going on, she didn't see it in the beginning because these victims they're mesmerized. These not Johns, the pimps or the perpetrators are very charismatic. I watched an interview on a prison inmate who was in prison for human trafficking, and he would talk about how I'll convince these girls that I love them, that it's going to be me and them forever, that we're going to move away, we're going to have a house with a white picket fence, and we're going to have kids, but I just need you to do this first.
Right.
And the only reason they're doing it is to make money. They're using them, and they do that with multiple young ladies. And that's not to say there can be men in this, but 99% of the time it's a female victim. And so they don't always know that they're being trafficked. But they are victims of trafficking.
Wow. Wow. That's shocking. I mean, there's no recollection. And I guess I can see that. I mean, it is so often with all manner of sin and, criminality that you get so far into it before you recognize where you've fallen to. Right?
Yeah. And you've nailed it. I mean, I'm glad you said that. I mean, at its very base, it's sexual sin. And I've often said that in a democratic and free society, we are not going to get rid of crime. We're not, because people are free to make their own decisions with their own actions, right? Yeah. Well, that goes for good people and bad people, or people with good intentions and people with bad intentions. So that's why we're always going to need law enforcement. The way I think we combat it is that we develop a reputation for, if you decide to do that here, you're going to be watched. The chances of you being arrested is going to go up. Yeah. So that's one reason we have been transparent. I want to develop a reputation for us in Guadalupe County that type of behavior is not going to be tolerated.
Amen. Amen. Well, you mentioned something earlier, and it's just kind of been percolating in the back of my mind here, and I want to ask you about it, just kind of as a fellow leader. You said that, one of a leader's role often, and I find this to be true, and it's particularly annoying to my staff and probably to yours as well, is that one of my chief jobs, I feel like, is to challenge assumptions. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, though, and as you said it, and I thought about it, and I thought, I wonder how good I am at actually challenging my own assumptions. And I wonder if you've given any thought to that yourself, as you've entered into a new role here as sheriff. Obviously you've been in law enforcement a long time and even served at the sheriff's department for a while. Have you come into it and realized, maybe I had some assumptions that I've had to let go of or reevaluate here?
I think a common leadership characteristic for decades past has been that you can't show weakness, or you can't show that you make a mistake. That's definitely a flawed approach. I think a leader has to be willing.
It's a foolish one too, because I'm it's so transparent how often I make mistakes.
Yeah, right.
They know it whether I admit it or not.
And nobody's perfect. Nobody, no matter what kind of image you try to put off, is well versed in every subject.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all step off in that hole at some point in time, and it's important for a leader to know that. I've tried to surround myself with a leadership team that I trust, and that I have to be willing to understand they're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But I give them the freedom to challenge me. And matter of fact, we just had a meeting this morning where I had a captain tell me when we talked yesterday, he said, I'm going to be honest with you, Sheriff. I knew how you wanted me to answer that, so I just gave you the answer you wanted. And I told him, I said, stop. Yeah. I don't want that. I want you to tell me what you think, and then we'll cut it up, because I think if everybody in that building is only operating on what I think we need to do, we have a ceiling as an organization. But if I have all these solutions from all these different smart people and we can all cut that up together and figure out where to go, I think our ceiling goes up and our capabilities go up. And I think Elon Musk gets that too, and that's why he challenges assumptions.
Yeah. So you've had now 5 months on the job. You guys have accomplished a lot, as we've discussed here. Tell me what's next on the horizon. You know, I know you've got that new system coming online very soon, and that's pretty exciting. But beyond that and the jail, but tell me kind of maybe some more of the things that won't be as visible, but what are the things that you're really looking forward to in the next 6 to 12 months to push as projects in your organization?
Forefront of my thoughts is our staffing is way behind. The most recent law enforcement data that we have from the FBI is that your average county police department, or because they have county police departments in some parts of the country, okay, or sheriff's offices, is 2.8 officers per 1,000 citizens. We're at 0.6 per 1,000 citizens. We're not even at 1 officer per 1,000 citizens. To give you a regional perspective of that, the Comal County Sheriff's Office is at 0.8.
Oh, wow.
So I put in a pretty aggressive approach to our budget for this FY26 request. I know I'm not going to get everything I'm asking for. To be able to get 2.8 from where we're at is an astronomical number that the county can't afford. Matter of fact, I think it's difficult just to get to 2. So I've told the commissioners I would like to shoot for 1. So roughly, if we have about 200,000 people in our population in our county, that would bump us to about 200 sworn deputies of some sort, whether they're investigator or supervision. We're sitting at 125 now, so that's about a 75 increase. But even that's what I want to aim for. I asked for 0.8 to be able to get up around where Comal County is right now. If I get that staffing up, it gives me more resources for the proactive type of investigations and police work we're doing, because I think traditionally in law enforcement, we've been very, very reactive. I think the public wants and expects more from us, that we're not just reacting to 911 calls, that we're not just going to those calls for service, but we are proactively going out and pursuing child predators. We're going out and pursuing fugitives that have absconded and putting them back in jail so that we can hold them accountable in the courts. That we're proactively addressing congested traffic areas where we need traffic enforcement. That gives me the personnel to do that. And additionally, my second point is that the personnel gives me a higher visibility and presence within the county. And as you alluded to earlier, that patrol car makes a difference. And that's scientifically proven that a police presence lowers crime. And then if that police presence is active in what they're doing in enforcement efforts, it suppresses it even more. So that's hard to measure. It's hard to get a quantitative result and to justify what the presence would do when it deters the crime, because you don't have arrest data or offense data to support it.
Right.
But if we could, for lack of better terms, saturate the county in police officers, I think it will create a presence in addition to our proactive efforts that pretty much sends out a message of, criminals go somewhere else because this ain't the place for you.
So, you said, the number, the goal ideal number is like 2.8, right? Now, obviously here in Guadalupe County, we've got police departments as well. We've got constables' offices, between Seguin, Cibolo, Shirts. Tell me kind of what's the number per 1,000 total that you would expect to see? Do you know? Yeah,
they put out another data point. It's 2.4 total officers for all the agencies within a county.
Okay.
But I'm working right now on getting with the police chiefs and getting their total numbers and putting that together, I would argue just from the little bit that I know offhand that we're still going to be below that.
Yeah.
We're not even going to have 2.4 officers for every agency in Guadalupe County per 1,000 citizens. So we're still going to be below. Sometimes I've heard the argument of, well, maybe you should extrapolate that the city population because you're the sheriff's office and that's the unincorporated areas, when that really is just not, that's not the reality that we live in.
Because you're responsible for the whole area, regardless whether there's an incorporated area.
The sheriff by statute is the preserver of the peace for the county. When a constituent calls me and they live in the city of Seguin or city of Schertz, wherever they're at, and they say, Sheriff, I need your help. I got this going on. I really haven't liked my response from this agency, or I just trust y'all, whatever the case may be. I send deputies and investigators to help them. I don't say call the city police department. We handle it. And that probably happens more than people realize. There was a school zone here right outside of Seguin where constituents were asking us for more presence, but it was within the city limits of Seguin. Mm-hmm. And I didn't call. I could have called Chief Brady and just said, hey, I'm getting this complaint. But I didn't. I just told my traffic units, hey, I want you out there 2 to 3 times a week. And next thing you know, I started getting phone calls from parents in that school district and from school district employees saying thank you so much. Because I think I'm the sheriff of the entire county, not just for the unincorporated parts. When my guys are working investigations, they're going to follow the crime wherever the crime is. So we made a significant arrest of a city of Seguin employee a few weeks back that a lot of people knew this person. Mm-hmm. That crime per se all happened within the city limits of Seguin, but my investigators were just following up on a lead, and it took it to where it's at. Crime doesn't, just because you can't just say I'm within the city limits of Seguin. I'm only responsible for this because I've only got this crime. Crime is transient, just like we are. We live in a society where we pick up and go to New Braunfels or San Antonio or whatever. The same thing happens here. Your criminals in Seguin are going to commit crime in the county.
Right.
Criminals in the county are going to commit crime in Seguin, San Antonio. They're going to come here. One of the last cases I worked on when I was a ranger was a criminal organization in Houston that was traveling all throughout the state and even outside of the state, and they were robbing ATM machines. And we were able to track them based on cell phone data and see that they had hit all these particular locations. But they never hit it home. They never stayed in Houston and did it. They went everywhere else to do it.
Wow. Well, Sheriff, tell me, I don't know that we've asked, and I can't recall it's coming up, but I would love to know just a little bit. We've heard a little bit about kind of your career over the years, but I'd like to just know a little bit about your family. Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm happy to talk about my family. I'm proud of them. I've been married to my wife, Janelle, for 24 years now. Make sure I get that right. I got out of the Marine Corps, got off active duty, and immediately went into the Texas DPS Academy. And this is something not everybody knows about her, but I met her in the DPS Academy. She was a trooper trainee just like me.
Okay.
And we started dating on the weekends and not really telling anyone about it.
Yeah.
Back then, we didn't think it would be a popular concept. So very quickly, we probably sooner than we should have, we decided we were going to get married. We were young, and we married the day after we graduated the academy. And we've had 3 beautiful children. My oldest, Brooke, lives up in Denton, goes to school, is studying to be a radiology technician.
Okay.
She just texted me last night that she's in like some step of the process on getting into school. She's really excited about it. Ethan, my middle child, he is stationed in Little Rock. He's in the Air Force on active duty. He's a C-130 crew chief. He's also working on his bachelor's degree in business analytics. He's about halfway through that. Not sure where that's going to lead him. He's 3 years into a 6-year enlistment. I'm his dad, so I've heard all the different ideas, but I think he's still formulating where that's going to go. But we're really proud of him. It's nice to have a 22-year-old son that pays all his bills and handles. He's very self-sufficient and he's grown up, And then I got a 14-year-old at home She's real involved in riding and horses, and she's on 2 different drill teams. And my wife homeschools her. We homeschooled our other 2 children.
Okay, really?
We've done the public school system and private school system a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it's been homeschooling. We decided to do that when my oldest was in kindergarten, and I had my reservations about it, but my wife brought me around, and I'm very glad we did it because we were able to do it in the way that we wanted to.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we homeschooled all our kids, or my wife did, I should say. I had
I'm in the same
whole
boat.
lot less to do with it than she did. But, well, that's fantastic. And you guys live around here? Y'all live in New Braunfels or in Seguin?
We live right outside of Seguin. So I'm a transplant by marriage, you know, but my wife is her dad's from San Marcos and her mom's from Seguin. Her mom's sisters, brothers, they grew up here in Seguin. And so I was a Texas Ranger in Bryan College Station, and the opportunity came open for me to transfer to New Braunfels. And when I did, I spent my last few years as a Ranger in New Braunfels, but we lived over here the entire time.
Yeah.
I covered some calls and investigations over in Guadalupe County when I was needed, but generally Comal County was my area. But yeah, we live here locally. My wife's grandfather owned a trim shop on Camp Street for years. It was called Bosley's Trim Shop. Okay. And some people who've been around a while know it, and some don't.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the guys that we have around here would know it. Unfortunately, I guess it's a little before my time.
Yeah.
But, well, that's great. Sheriff? And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you coming and sitting down with me. It's been a pleasure to meet you and get to know a little bit about you and what you've got planned. I do want to ask one final question. You've been around here a long time, and we always ask this a little bit, and it can put elected officials particularly on the spot. But I want to know, what is your favorite thing about Seguin? Or your favorite place to eat, or your favorite place to go, hang out? What is it?
Ooh, boy, that is putting me on the spot. I've got lots of favorite places to eat, so that's probably, I don't want to create any undue competition that isn't already there.
Well, you can have, like me, I've got lots of favorites, so you can.
I do have lots of favorites. I do like barbecue.
Yeah.
So
we've got some good choices here.
We do, and all over the county. Burnt bean, of course. Everybody knows about burnt bean. They're fantastic. I like Schulte's Pit Room. I like Harmon's Barbecue out in Cibolo. Sometimes I'll drive out to Luling and go to City Market. I don't discriminate. Davila's barbecue is good too. I know I'm probably leaving somebody out. I've pretty much made all of them.
Yeah.
And but I tell you what I like about Seguin really is just the relationships and the community. I said before we started this interview that as a Ranger, I was kind of behind the scenes, doing my job, being professional, keeping my head down. I'm really kind of an introvert by nature. Being a public figure has kind of forced me to get out there more, and I'm involved in all these different organizations now where I meet and talk to people, and there's a real genuineness in people around here, and I really like that, and I enjoy it. I'm happy to raise my family here and live here, and plan on being here for a few more decades.
Well, awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. We appreciate all the work you're doing, and just appreciate you stopping by to visit with us again.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
And so this wraps up another episode here at Discover Seguin. We really appreciate you joining us. If you have comments or questions that you'd have for us or for the sheriff, please feel free to pass those along. And be sure to like and subscribe and join us next time on a new exciting episode of Discover Seguin. Thank you.